Hi there, this is Mr. Harvison. In this video, we'll talk about graph parts. In seventh grade, you need to be able to identify these five parts of graphs. First, you got to know the title and how you can, two different formats of a title, X versus Y, or give a description of the graph. We'll talk about the horizontal axis, often called the X axis, and how that is usually representing the independent variable. We'll talk about the vertical or y-axis and how it represents the dependent variable. We'll talk about labels, what's being shown on each axis, and we'll talk about the scale, the number represented on each axis. All right, here we go. So here's a graph we've seen in class before. It does a pretty good job using all the parts and being pretty professional. So first off, we've got the title. The title of this graph is Temperatures in New York City. It's a descriptive title. It works perfect, and yep, usually belongs at the top of the graph. Next, we've got the x-axis label. It is day in this scenario, and the x-axis is oftentimes a measure of time, so seconds or days or years, or in this case, first day, second day, third day, fourth day, etc. This is the y-axis label. It's a temperature. It's degrees in Fahrenheit. You'll notice that it says degrees representing a temperature, and it says the units, Fahrenheit, as opposed to Celsius or Kelvin or whatever you might want to use. So it has the units there, and it's labeled, and oftentimes it's flipped up sideways so it fits nicely. And this is oftentimes the dependent variable. And we call it the dependent variable because it depends on the day. It changes each day. The days don't care what temperature it is, but the temperature changes every day. So this one, the y-axis is dependent on the x-axis. Finally, we've got the scale. This x-axis has a scale of 1 day, which means that each of these boxes here, each of these little vertical lines up and down, each of these lines represents 1 day in between each mark. That's good. It's appropriate. You can clearly see that this graph is representing 6 different days, and it's labeled well, and it has an appropriate scale. The scale on the y-axis goes from all the way from 0 to 80 in total. So instead of going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, they just put a scale of 0 and 20. And that makes it much easier to read. So this is a good scale. We think it's good. When you're making graphs of your own, you're going to have to decide how big do I want my scale? Do I want it to say each number 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or do you want it to go 0, 5, 10? How we would. Okay, not all graphs are this nice. Some of them look really nice, but they're missing some parts. And you should be able to identify which parts are missing too. So we'll practice with this next graph here. We've also seen this graph in class before. This has got a great title, number of African elephants, and something else it's got that is a great thing is a description. This one says estimate on wild mammal populations tend to come with a significant uncertainty. So here it just describes in 2 sentences what's going on in this graph and maybe explaining, whatever you want to. Maybe you could explain how you took the data, what you think might be wrong with it, etc. But this isn't going to be required, but sometimes you'll see this. So now you'll notice that some things are missing. There's no x-axis label. And yeah, it might be obvious that it's years, but still missing the label. Good thing it's got the scale. They did a good job there. Also, it's missing the y-axis label. What does this mean? What do these 10 million, 5, 15 million mean? Well, we know it's population or number of wild elephants. But it's still missing. And this is the scale right here, 0 to 5. That's it. Hope it helps.